So MGTOW, to the unaware, is a pretty complicated concept. A lot of people confuse MGTOW with a movement like feminism or the men's rights movement, when it's not necessarily like that at all. In reality, it's meant to be a lifestyle for men focused on self-ownership. It isn't a movement against women like some may perceive it as. They're significantly different from the men's rights movement. Even though both groups do share some ideologies, MRAs are out there to fix the problems they see through action and activism. MGTOW just want other men to be aware of these issues. Meaning they wouldn't necessarily be out there protesting or anything of that matter. They would outright choose to no longer participate in various aspects of society, like marriage, cohabitation, children. So one of the reasons there's a lot of confusion around MGTOW is the diversity of the members within it. At first it was mostly older men passing down some knowledge and warnings about jumping into relationships and getting married. Things that a young guy doesn't often think about. Alimony, family courts, odds of failure, having a realistic outcome and expectations. It was coming from a place of experience, and you could almost consider it as passed down wisdom. And if you take it for what it is, there's some really good stuff in there for young guys to think about. But it also applies to older men, because it shows them that there's others out there that had the same situations and experiences they've had, and ultimately they're not alone. There's other men out there that have had their lives turned upside down by family courts and divorce. But as it's picked up momentum, it started to appeal to more and more males, with a huge influx in young adult males. And now there's males of all ages, all backgrounds, and they each have their own reasons for following a MGTOW lifestyle. And like with everything, when something becomes more mainstream, it gets diluted and watered down, bent and stretched. And MGTOW is not quite what it once was. To better understand what we're talking about, we're going to take a look at the MGTOW community and how it categorizes men now. So men that choose to live a MGTOW lifestyle are considered red-pilled men. Men that see the constructs of society built on devaluing the man. They advocate the dangers of marriage and the consequences of divorce, the bias in the court systems, and the effects of hypergamy. And men that are unaware of these dangers or choose to disregard them are considered blue-pilled. This is where your traditional nice guy would fall into. So hypergamy is a social science concept that refers to how in some societies it's very common for women to marry and just be more generally attracted to men of higher social status. And this ties into the red pill, blue pill philosophy. I'm not going to dive too much into that because you basically need an entire video just to cover some of the aspects and areas. So bear that in mind because I'm mainly going to be focusing on hypergamy and the more MGTOW related aspects. I just want to make sure we're all on the same page for the next part. The first level are men who are aware of the different dangers of relationships associated with hypergamy and believe that there are still some good women out there worth taking a risk for. These are sometimes referred to as purple-pilled men, and they have varying degrees of relationship success. The next level is a man that rejects any long-term relationships. A man that will sleep around, possibly have a girlfriend, but never any long-lasting serious relationships or live with a woman. Some men prefer to have multiple casual partners and never actually commit. Others just avoid long-term relationships to prevent any real emotional intimacy. The next level are men that only interact with women when they have to. They have no interest in women at all on a personal level, limiting their interactions with women to a strictly business sense. You can consider these the hardcore MGTOW. They focus on themselves and mostly their career. And finally, the last stage of MGTOW and the most extreme is called ghosting. At this stage, not only does a man want nothing to do with women, but also society as a whole. A lot of these men live minimalistic lifestyles, working only part-time, and in some cases leave civilized society altogether to live off the land. So here's where we find the disconnect, because the point of MGTOW was originally about acknowledgement, and now it's some strange passive-aggressive movement designed to create a pendulum switch. So before I really give you my uneducated Canadian take on this, I'm going to explain a couple more terms for ease of understanding. Another type of MGTOW are men that cannot find a woman or have very little success in their life relationship-wise. These are referred to as true forced loneliness men, or TFL. This may sound familiar from one of my previous videos about incels, but don't let that influence you here. These guys are completely different than incels. Whole different mindset. Incels hold resentment towards a woman on an individual level, never really get over the initial rage, and TFL men look at it as a result of the current society and don't necessarily blame anyone. Huge difference. Another term you might see around the manosphere is Nawalt. So a Nawalt stands for not all women are like that. A Nawalt is a woman that isn't really driven by hypergamy, a woman that will be loyal and doesn't really have an opportunistic nature. And without a doubt, those women are out there. And that's one thing that MGTOW don't often address, is that there's opportunistic men out there also. And this creates a bit of hypocrisy because MGTOW tend to shame sexually active women that monkey branch from men to men, but to some degree they promote the same action for men. Never getting attached, only using women for sex, never settling, The whole pump and dump thing sounds a lot like thought-think. So just to clear this up, I'm in no way a feminist. I hold women to the same high standard I hold men to. And if you're messing around with someone who doesn't have the same priorities or standards as yourself, 9 times out of 10 you're going to end up getting hurt or someone's going to end up getting taken advantage of, regardless of gender. This applies to everyone. Another huge problem I have is a correlation a lot of MGTOW promote that women can have a direct effect on a man's success, and that women are often a distraction and can affect your productivity. I'm going to use 2 examples often used. First, Nikola Tesla. A lot of MGTOW like to look at Nikola Tesla as an example of a MGTOW man. Because of how Tesla never had a meaningful, intimate relationship with a woman, he solely lived for himself and his work. He did live with a woman for a short time, but it was more of a house-taker role than anything. This comparison is kind of false though, and an example of how correlation doesn't always equal causation. There's many variables not being taken into account here. The reason why Nikola Tesla never had a successful relationship wasn't necessarily because of the dangers of hypergamy or anything of that nature. It was because the more intelligent you are, the more likelihood that you're going to have a harder time relating to people and understanding emotions. Well, don't worry, I got studies. They're in the description. Just think about this for a second. Your average IQ in America was 70 in the early 1900s. Tesla's IQ has been theorized to be upwards of 200. You realize how many people had IQs in that range in the 1900s? Like a handful. I'm talking about like 0.001 percentile of the entire world. Tesla had very few personal relationships with anyone because he was vastly more intelligent than anyone else around him. Therefore, he had an immensely hard time relating to the average person, and this amplified his preferred isolation. I'm not even going to delve into the fact that he died alone in a boarding house with nothing and no one, and that's definitely not the way I want to go, but that's besides the point. Again, we'll look at Albert Einstein as another successful genius, who was actually the complete opposite of Tesla. Einstein was a total womanizer. He was charismatic, and most importantly, he was confident. And let's be real, Einstein wasn't known for his looks. I'm not trying to dispute my own point here, but it shows us that odds are just odds, not absolutes, and you can't paint the picture that being romantically involved with a woman is going to affect your success negatively, when there's no evidence for that at all. In fact, Einstein's wife actually contributed to some of his work. Another issue I have with current MGTOW lies in the frontrunners and fake upcomers. So if you search MGTOW on YouTube, you're bombarded with content from Sandman. He's been putting out content on a near daily basis for years now, and he's built quite a large channel, and he's got quite a bit of influence with people who are just getting introduced to these concepts. So if you're a young male who's lacking in social skills, a lot of this can sound very appealing and relatable. Because while Sandman has very poor social skills himself, and if you don't believe me, check out his video Dripping with Autism. He goes into great detail in his lack of social skills, his inability to relate to women, and the fact that he doesn't understand social cues or sarcasm.
While I don't actually know if I have higher functioning autism myself, the telltale signs are all there, and I used to talk about it with my therapist all the time. My obsession with my daily routine, and if it's disrupted in the least, I get very moody and angry. My seeming OCD for MGTOW content or just about anything else that I find interesting. I'll obsess with it to the point where I will actually drive the people around me crazy. Another characteristic for many is the behavior of constantly wanting to chew something. I graduated from pencils and pens and eventually chewed my own nails for most of my life. Anxiety is another sign of being on the spectrum, and I deal with it all the time. I also don't get depressed easily either, even under the worst possible circumstances in life, but I do actually have terrible social anxiety from time to time. Another thing is I've actually had to find ways to understand the behaviors of others consciously instead of unconsciously. For example, I don't understand sarcasm, but I've learned to identify when people are sarcastic. But I haven't trained myself to pretend to laugh at their sarcasm. A lot of the time I won't say anything when others are sarcastic.
His entire business model is based around not actually interacting with people on a personal level, and he prefers it that way. That's another thing too. Besides the fact that you're getting advice about your life from someone who has terrible social skills with little to no experience, he also looks at this like a business.
The only relief I seem to get is being isolated and alone for large chunks of time. That's why making YouTube videos for a living has been a blessing for me, because I don't have to interact with people all that much, and just do email or text communication and keep it to a minimum. But I still require the occasional social interlude, and working on photo and video projects for clients gives me that outlet. Otherwise, I would spend increasing amounts of time socially isolated and I would feel fine with that. One person's mental illness is another person's normal. Great ideas and work seem to come from solitude and clearly thinking in a deep way.
So you see where I'm getting at with this, guys. Once you turn something like this into a movement with an objective, it loses the original point, and you get people who want to capitalize off it. Sandman isn't the worst though. And to be honest, it's not necessarily the guy's fault.
I am a genius.
He sees everything literal, and it's so obvious that he's going to fall into this comfort zone and look at this from a business perspective. Remember, numbers are predictable and consistent. Quite the opposite of people. But whatever he's lacking in social skills, he makes up for in a business model end. Not many people can recycle their content every day and never have to bring anything new to the table. And you gotta understand, this isn't so much a lifestyle forced upon him, like most men watching him. It's a lifestyle he chooses. According to him, he's good looking and athletic. I guarantee he's got lots of cash. The kid's worked hard too, and instead of refining his social skills, he's focused on business. The business he's built off MGTOW. And I guarantee he'll continue even if the pendulum does theoretically switch, because he's not invested in the outcome. He's invested in the movement and the business. If his travel channel would have had the success of his MGTOW channel, I guarantee you he wouldn't even have started it. But don't get me wrong, it's admirable that he's built a business that complements his preferred lifestyle. But I guarantee there's men out there that don't want to lead a life that's one step below Hikikomori. But like I said, Sandman isn't the worst. Did you know there's teens going their own way now also? Listen to how this kid spreads the word.
What is up, my fellow young MGTOW, blue-haired, faggot, feminist bitches, and finally my blue-pilled cucks. Listen to this. Now, these are 5 tips that I wish I knew when I was in high school, with me now being 25. And I think if you are someone who's on their grind, who knows what they want, and they're a go-getter, and they're out to go achieve everything in life that they want and desire, I think these 5 tips can go a long way for you, alright? Now, this is specifically meant for my fellow
Never mind the fact he's apparently 25 and still in high school. Sorry, was in high school. That's not important. It is lull worthy though. Don't worry, I'll link the videos in the description so you know I'm not taking them out of context, but I will be cherry picking, because we both don't have time for me to cover this all. And since I'm nice, I'll save you the hassle, because half his content is Sandman's recycled shit, and the other half is...
Today I'm going to talk about something absolutely controversial in its nature because of how earth-shattering it is, and that is sex dolls.
That's right, sex bot revolution. Like, who is this kid?
I like turtles. Alright.
I'll give him a second chance though. Let's hear his knowledge about women and relationships.
Sex is crucial to the well-being and satisfaction of both sides in a relationship. But a woman can't be satisfied if she's had better partners in bed, because she's always going to be drawing comparisons to the best sex she's ever had every time she fucks. You know, it's natural. Now, of course, if you are with a woman, you could always do your best to make things kinky as fuck. You know, tie her up, blindfold her, tug her hair, screw her like a whore. You know, that's sure to get her to love it with you, but how often can you keep it up? There's only so much kinky sex you can have before it stops being kinky, you know? Like, literally, by definition, because if all the sex you have is kinky, then at that point it's just regular sex. And if you start out with having kinky sex because you feel like, you know, you're already behind, then what about regular vanilla fucking? At that point, it's just gonna be boring as hell. Imagine this, right? If you're working a 10-hour shift every day, you come home exhausted and want nothing on your face but a soft pillow and a shower, what makes you think you're gonna have the energy to gorilla fuck her brains out every single night? You're not.
Holy fuck. I can't even believe I'm addressing this. First, this seems more like a personal issue than anything, or someone that just doesn't understand what they're talking about. Kind of makes me think in this situation, it's more of a feeling of inadequacy or insecurity. If you're the type of person to sit there and worry about the other guys your girl's been with, then you're either dating the wrong kind of woman, or you're completely lacking in all confidence in yourself. And that will turn away a woman quicker than any bank account. I've talked about this stuff before. If you go into a situation and doubt yourself and let your insecurities influence your thoughts or actions, odds are you're going to perpetuate a negative outcome. And just to add on, when I was 23, I actually worked 10-hour shifts doing manual labor in a mine, like an underground mine. And when I was done a shift and that cage door opened, the first thing I wanted to put my face in wasn't a pillow. Maybe that's just a testosterone issue, I don't know.
Never ever eat a girl out even if she asks for it, and also never go out of your way to please her. Eating a girl's pussy, that just immediately puts you underneath her because it makes it seem as if you're lucky to have sex with her, which is not the case because that bitch isn't the prize, you are.
Oh, no, never mind. I think we've actually found your ultimate problem, my friend.
You do what you want. If you only want to put the dick inside and then pull out, that's what you do, okay?
No, I'm done. No, no way. This kid's trolling or he's fronting and has no idea what he's talking about.
I personally am a masculine guy.
I fear for future generations. I think I made my point. Come on, you know this channel isn't meant to be serious. But alas, here we are. And no shame. He's 25, we're like the same age. It's just bants between men. But to be honest, it's a really good example of how diluted this is now. Another thing is the whole pendulum switch itself. Okay, so passive-aggressive exclusion will never change anything. Number one, because not every man will participate, and even if they do, you're building relationships built on leverage and ultimatums. And that's the same manipulative behavior MGTOW often shame women for. So this, like everything else, is my personal bias on the situation. And if I had to fall into one of these categories, somewhere between a purple-pilled man and a Chad. I've never really had trouble talking to women. I've had long relationships, short ones. I could have a casual thing going on right now, but I'm currently just doing my own thing. I'm going through a MGTOW phase, which I've done before. I'm taking some time, sitting back, assessing what went wrong, what the current dating culture is like, asking myself, was it me? Was it the kind of women I was going after? What do I actually want in a woman? Then I set a standard and I find someone on the same page as myself. And these are probably the same questions and concerns women ask themselves too. We gotta open up a dialogue about whether this is a gender-specific problem or a societal problem. Are we in an age when women only want the so-called alpha male? Or are we in a time when a lot of people are lacking in social skills and confidence because face-to-face interaction has lessened over the years? I don't know, but what I do know is one thing. If you progress up the MGTOW ladder, it's going to be a lot harder to climb off because your social skills will degrade over time without practice. Not only that, but people in society also change too. See, I'm in no way against someone living a MGTOW lifestyle. And to be honest, there's a lot of really good MGTOW content if you go into it with an open mind. There's a lot of really good stuff that makes you think about people and the changes we go through on a societal level.
You know, we're living in a society. We're supposed to act in a civilized way.
Some of them even border on self-help too. And to be honest, I'm a huge advocate of self-improvement and developing self-respect. Even if you're not balls deep in MGTOW, there's still some things you can take from it. But maybe that's just me. I'll watch someone with completely differing views so I can figure out what motivates them. It's not always what's being said, but what's trying to be achieved that interests me. And I get we're in a time where people have social anxiety, but avoiding things that make you uncomfortable isn't ideal. And the only way to get rid of social anxiety with women is systematic desensitization. I know, big terms. But all that means is that when you're in a social situation and it makes you uncomfortable, the only way to get over that is by putting yourself in situations that make you uncomfortable, till it's no longer foreign to you. You have to desensitize yourself to your fears. In no way am I saying what's best for anyone, because everyone is different. I don't know what motivates you, I don't know what your agenda is, and I'm definitely not going to tell a middle-aged man who's divorced what to do in regard to a relationship, because quite frankly, he's been in territory I haven't been. But for the younger guys out there, what I can say to you is if your mission is to eliminate hypergamy or set a precedent in society, you can't do it from the outside. You have to jump in the mess, climb your way to the top, and lead by example. Ask yourself, do you want to be watching the game from the sidelines? Or do you want to be a player who can actually influence the outcome? And that's where I'm going to leave you. Make sure to drop a like, share this video, and then go apeshit in my comment section, because I want to see what everyone has to say. See you guys next upload.
I